Alright, man, take a seat, buckle up. Ordinarily, we'd start with orientation of the car here, but we got calls pending, and we got to get to them. So, we're rolling. We're going to have to learn on the way. Alright, today I set the car up. So I buy these gloves. They cost me $75. 2 weeks after using them on patrol, it's all cut up. Look at that big rip in it. But I'm absolutely delighted with the performance of them, and I'll tell you why. Alright, so a long time ago, in a place not very far away from here, I was training this new guy at the PD, right? And when I say new, I don't mean that new. He had been to police before, but he came to us from a much smaller town. He didn't get into a lot of stuff there. He had seen some things, but it wasn't like where he was coming to. So, I just let him start driving the car on his own, and a call comes out over the state police radio that in a neighboring town there had been a carjacking with shots fired, and taken in the carjacking was a burgundy GMC Safari minivan, right? So we're driving around, he's driving, we're discussing what we do if somebody else stops this car for the carjacking, and we have to do a felony stop or a high-risk stop on the car. And as we're discussing that, he sees the burgundy GMC Safari with the same license plate number driving past the opposite direction. So he points it out to me, whips a U-turn, and gets behind the car, and before he even lights it up, the dude jumps into a neighborhood and starts taking off on us. So he hits the lights and hits the siren. I get on the radio, I start calling other units by us, and the guy's whipping through neighborhoods, blowing through stop signs and stuff. Luckily he's in a minivan, so it's not that hard to kind of keep up with them and still be able to see intersections and keep the speed under control to some semblance of reality, right? So the guy gets on a straightaway on a side street and shuts his headlights off. I guess everybody thinks that they're like camouflage when they shut their headlights off at night. So this guy's blowing through stop signs going westbound on a street with a bunch of cross streets because he knows that we're slowing down at every cross street and he can just blow them, and it gets around his disadvantage of driving the minivan against us, right? So this guy's plowing, and he's coming up to a 90-degree intersection, but he doesn't have any headlights on, and he's disregarding stop signs. So it's like one of the dumbest things I've ever seen somebody do. You don't run from the police like that. Well, you know what? I'll just show you. Here, I'll draw it out for you. Get this. Alright, so you can get a full understanding of the terrible decision-making that's going on in this particular instance. I want to draw it out for you. We're driving down a street that's a side street, and every intersection we come up to, there's a stop sign, and the guy that we're chasing down, he keeps plowing through them. He's plowing right through. Now, at the end of this street is a 90-degree turn with a stop sign at it and a stop line. And before the stop line, there's a huge speed bump. And over here, there's a guardrail that curves around the intersection to keep people from going flying off this 90-degree intersection. And then there's a 3-foot fence right here. The 3-foot fence is the important part later. And then on the other side of the 3-foot fence is an enormous expressway. So here we are, flying through. He's blowing through stop signs, coming up to this 90-degree curve. Alright, so we get about 3 streets from that 90-degree intersection, and I'm kind of getting the spidey sense tingly feeling, thinking there's a really good chance I'm going to be able to cross off, watch a burgundy GMC Safari jump a guardrail directly into the side of a semi off of my bucket list, my police bucket list. So I grab a hold of the new guy's arm. I was like, "Whoa, slow down. There's that intersection up there on the frontage road. Slow down." So he starts slowing down, and this guy hits the speed bump, right before the stop sign and goes airborne. Now, unfortunately for me and my police bucket list, he didn't get as much air as I thought he would get, and he ended up hitting a guardrail. He did crash pretty spectacularly. So, dude hops out, doesn't skip a beat. How this is, I don't know. It's really weird to me that people don't get more hurt in crashes when they're running from the police. This guy nails a guardrail head on, probably 45, 50 miles an hour, hops out and runs, and hops a fence that had been put in wrong, or I guess put in right, depending on how you look at it, where the spiky end of the fence is pointed straight up. All right, so here's one of these frontage road fences. As you can see, it's made to be kind of hard to jump over. They don't put a top post in it. They just got this metal wire, and the spikes are pointed up and allowed to just completely rust over. So when you cut yourself, you get tetanus. It's fun. So this is exactly the same type of fence that I was jumping. So I see this coming. I already know the fence is going to be a challenge, even though it's only 3 foot tall. So I throw my gloves on, those hatch gloves that I showed you, and we go running after this guy, right? Rookie hops out, he hops the fence, no problem. I hop the fence, and I immediately felt a shooting pain in my hand like I had never felt before. And I thought for sure that I had been cut up by the top of this fence. I thought, I caught one of those spikes. I knew it was going to happen, and I got it, right? Well, I got the rookie with me. I can't get him to stop, so he's running after this guy. Now, mind you, this isn't like rural Ohio or rural Missouri expressways. I'm talking expressway like the one I'm on now. These expressways over here, they're 8 lanes wide. I mean, this is a big expressway. This is a hell of a game of Frogger to get into, right? So we chase after this guy. He froggers across the expressway. We frogger after him. He ends up getting onto the other side of the expressway and gets holed up inside some sewers, some big drain pipe sewers over by a Home Depot. And he ends up getting away from us there and gets taken into custody later on when he gets caught crawling through a swamp. So we get to the other side, we lose him. I look down, I am fully expecting to see blood, gushing out of my hand from jumping that fence. I figured for sure it went right through the glove. I look down, and the leather's cut, but the mesh liner of Dyneema is unscathed. I pull the glove off. My hand's black and blue in the spot, but I'm not cut. No emergency room visit. Unbelievable. I am so happy with that. My deductible would have been more than what those gloves cost. So even though they ripped within 2 weeks of having them, they did their job. That leather is puncture resistant for needles to a certain extent, but the Dyneema underneath is so incredibly cut resistant. I love those things. It saved my hand. No doubt in my mind, it saved my hand. I mean, it made my hand black and blue from the impact of the spike. I can just imagine, I can't even imagine how much that would have cut me up going over that. And then I would have lost time at work, which is losing money. So that's why I'm so happy with these gloves. Even though I only had them 2 weeks on the street and they got ripped, the real key to these is this liner. This thin liner here is what kept my hands from getting all cut up by that fence. Now, these leather gloves are what's commonly referred to as search gloves, because in case you find something that's sharp or pointy, in the case of something sharp, the Dyneema liner is pretty good at stopping it. I'd say mine's a pretty good testimonial to that. And the leather, the goat leather that they use in these is pretty puncture resistant. Not puncture proof, and not as good as a dedicated puncture resistant fingertip glove, but the problem with puncture resistant linings, at least in 2015, is that they limit the dexterity and what you can feel through the glove, and this is about as thick as you can get without losing a lot of feeling for when you're searching someone. So they're a good all-around search glove if you're worried about finding broken ends of crack pipes or needles, and they're a really good fighting glove or chasing glove, a general patrol glove. This is what I use. Not that this is the only thing I've used. In fact, after these ripped, I went and got another pair of them that I've had for 5 years now. And these, you can see, have actually worn through some of the spots on the fingertips. There's wear-through marks where you can see the, here's one, where you can see the liner underneath. See a little gray spot? That's the Dyneema liner. So these need to be replaced, but this is what they look like after 5 years. I really like these for general patrol work. Now, there are some downsides to them. One is that, unlike other types of gloves out there, like if you were to get a pair of $20 mechanics gloves, you can wash these with no real ill effects. These, the best you can do, the best I've found to be able to do, is put hand sanitizer on them and rub them together and hope that that killed most of it. Of course, that also starts to destroy the leather, so you can only do that so much. That's a downside of these. Another good thing about these Friskmasters from Hatch is that whether you get the Kevlar or the Spectra or their Dyneema liner, depending on how much money you have, because they run from like 40 to 75 bucks, they're fully lined. The liner is the entire glove. Anywhere that is glove, there's the liner in it. Where with the nylon exterior ones and the spandex and the Cordura exterior gloves, all the cloth exterior gloves that are washable, don't generally have it full lined. They're either lined on the back for cut resistance in case somebody attacks the back of your hand, or they're lined in the fingertips, which is common for the puncture resistant ones, or they're lined just in the palm, so if you grab something sharp and it slices through the exterior of the glove, it won't get through the liner. But very rarely are they completely fully lined, and that's to give you a lot of dexterity with them. Now, one of the downsides of this glove is that when you put the glove on and you go to put it into the trigger guard of a pistol or a taser, a lot of times the extra thickness of the leather and the liner make it difficult to get the glove into the trigger guard. So if you're going to use these, you have to make sure when you try them on, which you should be doing, you make sure they'll fit into the trigger guard of your pistol and into the trigger guard of the taser. And make sure all your equipment works even with these on, because they do make your hand a lot thicker. Also, they're expensive. These were 73 bucks. For different purposes, there are a lot of different types of gloves. That's not what this is about, but there's your more hard-knuckle gloves and your cheaper gloves that I like to use for training. These mechanics gloves, 2 different colors of them, and lots of different types of gloves out there. Cold weather gloves, and sometimes one type of glove has to be pressed into the duties of other ones. But for general patrol work, even though they're expensive, it's hard to beat a pair of these Hatch Friskmasters with the Dyneema in them. I really like them. Well, if you like that video, go ahead and subscribe, because there's a whole lot more to come. As soon as I finish up these calls, go 10-8. County 291. 291.